I want to welcome everybody to our meeting. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And we're calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the draft minutes of the November 4th meeting. Are there any comments or questions relative to those minutes? There being none, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mark, second?
Second.
Okay, that's Patrick, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Do we need to take a roll call vote because it's on Zoom?
Yeah, you're supposed to.
It's a small group, but we could do that. Patrick? Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Mark?
Yes, aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Myself, yes. So that's it. Okay, so it's unanimous. Okay, the next item is going to be an item for considerable discussion. And we want to talk about tonight some of the things that a housing trust can do and what our objective should be after we discuss these items is to focus in on one or two of them and pursue that with respect to the actual development of the trust, focusing on the items that are supported by discussion this evening. I want to run through a couple of items that the housing trust can do and can be used for. The first would be, and then we'll get into discussion, the first would be financial support for construction of affordable houses by a private developer, either on for-profit or not-for-profit, or on municipal or non-municipal land. That's one thing that can be done with a housing trust, and i.e. Pine Woods is an existing project, as is Heaton Court for the elderly. Another item that can be done with a housing trust would be rehabilitation and repair of homes that could be converted to affordable housing, i.e. Tax delinquent properties with Habitat for Humanity assisting and other sources, and also properties that property would generate a lien restriction as a result of consideration of this item. Another one would be developing surplus town land and buildings. For example, development of the Stockbridge industrial site for housing. Another one would be, and we've talked about this, grants for first-time home buyers. That's going to be somewhat of a toughie, and Michael will comment on the fact that the median home value is pretty high. So those are four items that I am putting on the table. Michael, do you have some additional ones?
No, I think you've hit most of them.
Okay. Tell us what the median income is for houses in Stockbridge.
Right. So right now, the median household in Stockbridge is $480,900.
$489,900.
Which is about double the normal amount of a home in Berkshire County.
So basically, with that in mind, that would really strain first-time home buyers, with income considerations anywhere from, I think it goes anywhere from like 69,000 to 100,000 to be able to afford a house like that. Is that a fair statement, Michael?
Yeah, so I was looking into this and using the average median income, which in Berkshire County, you're roughly around 50-something thousand. Stockbridge is actually, let me see, I had it written down. Medium income is 43,578. And predominantly that's because we have a lot of seniors that are on fixed income. But even if you look at with a combined income of, if you had somebody with an approximate $50,000 income, that means that an affordable house, which can only equal 30% of their gross income, would mean they basically could afford about a $250,000 home, that's what would be an affordable home in Stockbridge. There's really no homes that are 250,000 or less in Stockbridge.
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult for either the first time
Okay,
home buyers programs to assist anybody because the homes don't
Okay.
fall within that category. And then as far as rehabilitation of homes, they'd have to fall into that category. And Pine Woods and them can already apply for CPC funds directly under the same criteria. And correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, isn't it up to like 110% of AMI? So, you know, we don't need to look at even the rehabilitation because the ones that are in Stockbridge actually could qualify just under the CPC funding, and you don't need a separate housing trust for that, which really gets us down
Oh,
to
sorry.
just
I
developing housing.
appreciate. the-
So, and just throw that out there.
Niggling feeling like this is a crossroads where I can choose safety.
Is there somebody discussing something in a side conversation?
Not me, but I have a comment.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that I think the
Should I
sweet
just say
spot,
let's do Hartsburg, or should I say, we're,
Oh, Steve, we can hear you.
Day for us, let's do Clarksburg,
okay.
okay?
I muted Steve.
I think that, Jay, we still have a sweet spot though. If we combine Habitat housing with the first-time home buyer down payment, you can get housing. When I talked to the Berkshire Director of Habitat for Humanity, they thought if we could get the land donated, we could bring a house in right around 250,000. You could then combine that with the $20,000 down payment assistance and still have a program that would work for low-income folks. So I don't think we have to abandon the housing trust just yet. You know,
No.
I really
And-
think that, yeah.
No, I wasn't advising about abandoning it. Actually, when I was talking to Donna, it was specifically a Habitat to Humanity home with a down payment is about the only thing that really fits Stockbridge, because unless we're developing affordable housing, there isn't any current stock of affordable housing outside of Pinewood, Eaton Court, and the few apartments down in the industrial park.
And speaking of Pine Woods, you know, when those were built, you only needed 30 units to qualify for federal maintenance money. Now you need 50, and we have 32. I really think a high priority of ours, so that those units, so there's a revenue, an income stream or whatever to maintain those homes. We need to figure out how we're going to, you know, access federal funds for maintenance, because if we don't do that, I don't believe Construct has the resources to maintain in long-term Pine Woods. So that's going to be a whole nother discussion that we're going to have to figure out how to have.
I would like to make a point, just making a note. It's interesting to note that Great Barrington does have facilities for first-time home buyers, down payment assistance. Williamstown has what they call, and this is new, that they're developing an emergency mortgage aid program vis-a-vis COVID. And Lennox has a down payment for first-time home buyer grants also. And those three communities, you know, just before we tackle some of these other considerations, Williamstown is in the process of developing a 42-unit complex on Cole Avenue. Lennox, you read the paper about Brushwood Farms, 65 units. It's kind of a contentious situation. And they have a whole bunch of facilities, the Curtis Hotel, Church Street, one family housing, special housing needs on West Street, Golden Hill Road. And Great Barrington just built a huge housing complex on Bridge Street. I don't know if anybody has gone the back way with the food co-op, but there's a really a very large complex down there. So these three towns, you know, as we move further into defining what role and how we can play this game, one of these towns would be very valuable to hear what they do as far as a subsequent meeting. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Jay, I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if anybody in our group knows this, Michael, maybe. How many properties are in some tax arrears that the town has taken over or might take over, and whether any of those buildings could be rehabbed once the town had control of them? Is that a possible source of kind of raw material?
Right now, the only one that we're close to taking in tax possession is the gas station by Berkshire Theater Festival. We
Yeah.
do have a couple properties that are in tax title, but we have not moved. They're still a couple years away from moving to what's called tax possession. And more than likely, most of them either get sold and lifted out of tax title before they actually fall to what's called tax possession. So we really don't have much as far as that.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, one other thing to bear in mind there is that that if we're going to do something with habitat, it makes much more sense to do some kind of multi-unit, multi-family, possibly even like cluster or condo apartment type of development. And you know, I really hope, and this is for Nancy, that our planning board kind of considers the fact that those opportunities, some of the parcels we might identify, regardless of what people think about like the luxury condo market and all the rest of it and the debates we're having, in this specific instance, having the flexibility for affordable or low income or workforce housing potentially, it'd be really nice if we had the flexibility that our current zoning does not afford to make a partnership with Habitat work, on potentially one of these parcels.
One thought, Patrick, would there be, and I would throw this out also to Michael, would there be any positive aspects to expanding to some degree the Pine Woods facility, or at least looking at it and see if it can be expanded? I think there's still land there.
I think that's the big question is there enough land based on what's around Pinewood to expand?
Don't know.
I think that Pinewood and then if not Habitat to Humanity are the two key things probably for us moving forward in development, like Patrick said, with the first time home buyers for those type of projects.
Yes. And once again, at Pinewoods, we might have to expand up because it's surrounded by wetlands. And I don't think that Ron and our friends on Concom are going to kind of let us fill. Not that they could if they wanted to, but yeah. I think Pinewoods is a real problem that we got to figure out how to help construct, solve, and get some new housing. The other good news though is when you're doing your laundry list of what other towns are doing, remember, I believe all. Oh, I somehow went off the thing. I was just saying that of the towns you listed, most of them are under the 10% threshold that opens them up to Chapter 40B developments and puts them in trouble with the state. We're at 10%, largely because we have such a large percentage of second homeowners and they don't count toward the calculation. So we've got the flexibility to do what we want, not what we need, with regard to these kinds of issues and opportunities.
Well, I think that, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, sorry, I'm good.
I think the thought also is, dependent upon combining grants. Grants, and Michael, you need to help me out with the legality of this. Grants put a lien on the property where these monies have to be returned upon sale. And the property ultimately remains in the category of affordable housing. Is that a fair statement?
For first-time homebuyers, yes. I mean, the first criteria,
Right.
there's like 3 different steps. One is they have to be income eligible. Second is the property has to meet the criteria of affordable housing, which is our issue, that we don't have any homes right now that meet that criteria. Then the third is a deed restriction that can be lifted after so much time. So some communities say that after 20 years, if you sell the house, then you don't have to pay it back. Or Boston actually has it at 50. If you stay in the home for 50 years, you don't have to pay the loan back. Yeah.
I have
How that
friends in
actually
Boston.
applies, I'm not,
I think that Boston has a sliding scale. A friend of mine had a condo that was bought under that
Yeah.
program, and they have after 3 years, you might only have to return 90%, and every couple of years the percentage
Yeah.
goes down. You can be as creative as you want with that.
right. And just on Patrick's thing, right now we have, according to the last department state audit of how affordable housing, Stockbridge had 1,051 homes, 113 that were considered affordable, which put us at 10.8%. So we're right there at the 10% threshold. Most of those are Pinewood, Heaton Court, and like I said, the industrial park. So whether or not that number changes, they usually do it in December. So
That's not
it
the
should-
new census, though, Michael, is it?
What was the total
They do
number,
that
Michael?
they do that each year. The Department of DCHD does that every year in
Yeah,
December.
but they base it on full-time.
They base it on the
residents,
census, yes.
and that census number. I think that our full-time houses. I mean, at the tax classification hearing, Michael Blay suggested that there would only be 600 homes that would qualify as for the residential exemption. So those two numbers that number's probably gonna go down, which is gonna improve our numbers. Yeah, that 1,000 number.
What is that 1,000 number again, Michael Canales? 1,000 total?
As of the last one, it was 1,051 homes that counted as part of our stock. 113 were considered affordable for
Right,
10.8%.
right. What I'm starting to hear here are two things, and maybe my hearing is off. Number one is there any way to expand our existing projects, i.e. Pinewoods, with Habitat for Humanity? That's number one. Number two would be consideration of a possible blended project with respect to the grant plus a development project. There would be two separate issues. Does that make any sense to anybody?
The only thing there, Jay, is with regards to Pinewoods, Construct is in the affordable housing business. We wouldn't really expand that with Habitat. Likely, we expand it with Construct. I would think
fine.
they own Pinewoods.
I'm comfortable with that. I have no
Yeah.
problem with that. Yeah, or Construct, right. What about that, folks? In other words, what I'm saying, to recap, I'd like to pursue the thought of expanding any existing sites that we have, or number two, developing a site and including grant considerations for income eligible persons. Two separate aspects. What's any comment on that, Mark Mills?
Well, I just have this sense that nobody wants to build anything around here for under $500,000 or more. I don't know whether we can find developers or builders who will operate on the kind of thing we can afford. And somehow we have to bend the marketplace to our will to try to get
Well,
people that are, want to build big expensive places and build things that are more affordable for workforce housing. So I'm just feeling like there's a big obstacle here in terms of what's per square foot, what you can build something for in Berkshire County.
That's why Habitat uses volunteer labor. The way they build that, the way they bring in an affordable home at $250,000 is that they basically build it like people used to build barns. They do it with a group of folks who donate their time. They sometimes get donated materials, leftover construction materials. They're really crafty when it comes to the many creative ways they bring them in for exactly that reason. If they can't bring them in at, depending upon the rule, 80% of AMI or whatever, what someone can afford, there's no reason to do it.
Patrick, are they equipped to, and I've banged in a few nails for Habitat myself over the years. Are they equipped to build like 10 or 12 units in a location?
Sure, they're doing that in Great Barrington right now, I believe.
Well, that's
There's
good.
that development over that was announced last year.
but remember, building 10 or 12 units, number one, we've got to have the location. And number two, these units will always be affordable housing units. Is that a correct statement, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say that we had one on, I think it was 6 homes on Woodward Street in North Adams that were built by Habitat. And Jay, you correctly stated, the biggest issue here is land, finding the land, the place. That's going to be our biggest challenge.
And zoning.
And zoning, that's
Go
right.
ahead, Nancy.
Right.
Unless we dip below 10, but that's not a good.
I had a
Well-
question for Mike. Mike, do you think the town would donate any land for affordable housing?
That would, obviously that's a town meeting. That's more
Yeah,
of
'cause
the
I
residents
know-
deciding, but
I
I
know the
guess,
town has a lot of land.
right, but do we have a lot of land that's not in, most of it's up around the reservoirs and basically conservation land.
You have the industrial park.
We don't
But
own
someone
that.
owns that.
I could go through and Mike Blay, what the town owns and whether or not we have any decent tracts of land that could be available, that could be pursued in that way, but I'm not sure offhand, Patrick. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, first of all, the industrial park is owned by the Zavians, not the town. The guy who owns the clothing and jewelry store in Lee. Look, we have a number of parcels that would be really interesting. For example, we've got. I've personally been thinking that figuring out a way to make better use of when I was a kid, we had 3 Little League teams. I was on the Interlaken Indians and I never got a hit, just so you know. But now we have none. Okay. And I needed glasses. I didn't know it. So, maybe there's a way to reconfigure the playground and move it down into the ball field and think about housing in the Bidwell parcel, which according to Rick Wilcox, we took it by eminent domain. It was not a gift. There's other parcels we have. And in the past, the town has used eminent domain. It's conceivable that if we find something we like and the town wants to appropriate the money to reasonably acquire it, we could do that too. I mean, I just feel like we have maybe some options. We own that parcel over by the lake on Lake Drive too. I don't know what we could build there. It might have to build up rather than out. I don't know how big it is, but it'd be lakefront for affordable housing. How great would that be?
Tom Shop? Tom?
Yeah, thanks. Just to be clear, so we're at 10.8% right now. So what we're discussing is not a necessary mandatory act at the moment. Like we're okay. We're just preparing for if that number were to go down. Okay. I just want to. Yeah.
Right, correct. And, you have to remember too, that the site, ultimately the site has to be approved by abutters. i.e., we had a lot of heat on that 37 Interlaken site, the DeSisto School, even to develop homes there, irrespective of high-end homes. They were talking about 100 homes, expensive homes. So, I think Michael Canalis's point to review with Michael Bly any available property, that would be number one. That would be a good starting point. I think we would want to know where that stands. And I think what we seem to be saying here is, again, I like to repeat myself. When you get old, you repeat yourself. Is that we're looking really at developing a project, okay, as opposed to taking property with tax liens or something of that, or even expansion of pine woods. So, but I think I think the place to start would be site development, site existence, and site development, and then we get in. We find out what those properties are, and we get in folks from either Lennox or Great Barrington to talk to us about what they've done there. What does that do for anybody?
Well, I agree. I think identifying properties, potential properties, and then trying to identify all of the potential problems around that, around zoning and
Yep.
abutters and whatever, to see whether it's a hill we can climb or not. That seems like a good way to do it. And it also seems smart that rather than pick off one or two buildings here or there on stray property, that we try to do something that really has some substance to it, which would be, half a dozen, 8, 10, whatever it is, units. And then, as Nancy said, the Z word, the zoning word comes up here, because a lot of this land is like 4-acre zoning, and what we're talking about here is so far from that we'd have a big obstacle there, I think.
I think when it comes to land, look, we've really got our primary mission here, our initial mission is we got to get the legal framework for the housing trust completed, because we're not even in a position yet where we can do any of the things we're talking about. Then, and maybe concurrently, I think that, it's important to keep an open mind, and as opportunities arise, be in a position to take advantage of them with the flexibility of the trust fund. I think if this group is the initial, members of the trust, or whatever, I think that we've got the wherewithal to take advantage of opportunities as they arrive, as well as set a long-term, vision for, where we think that the sweet spot might be.
Coming back to just a recap of Mark Mills's comment. Number one, to identify potential property sites, okay, for such projects. 2, to identify problems with those sites, i.e. zoning, abutters, land elevation, so forth and so on. And the third point was one of looking at potential inventory of individual tax lien, if you will, properties that could be adapted for either construct or Habitat for Humanity. I'm with one property that's on Route 7 near High Lawn Farm. I don't know, as you make a bend, make the bend right near Keith Raftery's house. Is an abandoned yellow house that's been abandoned at least for the years that I've lived here, which are 18 in Stockbridge. What is that? What's with that?
That's the Prognar property. I put that in tax title years and years ago.
So,
And I could never locate any of the owners. The owners have died, and it's gone down to the children of the family, and they've never responded. Even the treasurer, Karen Williams, at the time tried to reach out because she graduated from high school with one of the children, and they never responded to her either. So
Are they
But I
paying
mean, that's
taxes?
property that could be taken by the town, you know, or is the
Yeah.
town's property.
I can look into that one, and I know, right, we can begin the process of tax possession through the courts, which would typically takes 2 years. So,
I don't think
Oh.
there's much land there, though. It's just that one house.
oh, is it? Oh, all right.
Hmm.
And then I also caution everybody, when we talk about eminent domain, is that you still have to, you're still gonna have to pay fair market value for the property. So
Mhm.
even though we could take it for the public good, it's not, you don't just grab it for nothing. So,
Plus the back
And-
taxes.
and
Well,
yeah.
there's also an issue of non-payment of taxes for a period of time. Is that correct, Nancy? You know, I'm
Pardon?
sure
I'm
they haven't
sorry.
paid any taxes.
Pardon? I'm
Right.
sorry.
I'm sure that nobody's paid taxes on that particular piece of property.
Oh, gosh, no, it wouldn't be in tax title still if they'd had a payment agreement and paying taxes on it. At least they had, when I left, they still hadn't been doing it. I don't know now what's going on.
But we could look at that. So what about that area as a start? Does that make sense for everybody on the committee?
Well, like I said, we'll identify I'll find out all the ones that are in tax title,
Right,
where they are, if they've been there for more than a couple of years, and whether or not they can begin the process of moving the tax possession. And then identify, like Nancy pointed out, the size of these parcels. So, you know, and whether or not there's a home on them, do they meet the zoning, not, you know, where are they at? So,
and then also a town sites,
right,
possible.
town-owned sites, I can look at
town-owned
that too.
sites.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
and bring that back.
You know, it would be nice if as it relates to affordable, if we had a simple bylaw that allowed in a situation like that, if there was a pre-existing conforming or non-conforming house, you know, it'd be great if, for the purposes of the town and its partners to build this sort of housing, if we could by right replace a single family house with a 2 or 3 family house, which right now requires a special permit, which is really anti-affordable. It's not just not conducive, it is considered by many to be sort of a redlining strategy from the old days. You know, it'd be great if by right we could build 2 or 3 families, because then on a parcel like that, you could basically, it might not be they'd have a lot of land, but at least you could fit 2 or 3 families in it. And if Habitat could come in and build it, for 3 families for 750,000, we'd be like off and running in 2 years,
Well, we need to identify those properties, which is the first point, So I think if everybody is comfortable, is there anybody not comfortable with the identification of potential town-owned property sites, with the identification of problem zoning, construction on those sites, and also identification of tax lien, tax title properties as our next step? Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds
Yep.
good.
I think we should have a motion on this. Can we have a motion as the next action step? Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll see if I can rattle one off here. It's Mark. I move to have the town identify any possible properties that would be suitable for developing multifamily housing that might be owned by the town or could be in a legal proceeding leading to the town's ownership.
Perfect. I'll second that. Okay, Patrick, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, Tom? Tom, you
Yes,
comfortable?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm comfortable. Mark, you okay
Yes.
with that?
I think, yes.
Nancy?
I just had a question did you say can you repeat the beginning of that, what you said, please?
Yeah, I'm moving that the town identify any properties currently owned by the town or in any legal proceedings that could eventually be owned by the town, that could be available for the development of multifamily housing.
So for the town to identify?
That's the thing. I'm saying the town to identify. I don't know who individually is the one who has to find this information out.
Yeah, we have
I'll
to
work with the
find
assessor.
out with Michael Canales and Michael Bly and
I
find
left
out.
that part general, just
Right.
because I don't know who to, I'm not in no position to
Okay,
assess anybody.
okay.
We have to make that assignment, okay? Okay, so that would be, that's the first action step. And then number two, I think we ought to, based on what we come up with, get a knowledgeable person from either Lennox or Great Barrington to talk to us at our next meeting. We okay with that?
Which
Yep.
one of
Yes.
those places would be most comparable to us, do you think, folks?
Probably Lennox.
Lennox.
Lennox,
All right, because it would be good to know what obstacles they're running into. They're dealing with similarly priced houses. And, you know, the process of developing affordable
Right.
housing is a tough challenge for them as well, so.
Exactly. Anything else at this point, anybody wants to discuss?
I think at some point in the near future, we should invite June Wolf and Andrea, what is it, Scholler? June Wolf is the construct manager for Pine Woods. And Andrea is our housing authority, manages Heaton Court. I think we should get them in. They're experts at affordable housing and get their thoughts on both their properties, additions to it, maintenance requirements, how we get there, accessing federal funds, all the rest of it.
And maybe as a corollary to that, Patrick, that we talk with those two individuals and see if there is any ability to expand those sites.
Yeah.
Okay. What are their names? What's the Pine Woods?
Pine Woods is June Wolf with an E, WOLFE, and she works at Construct. And I'll get you her contact information offline. And then I believe it's Andrea Scholler, isn't it, Michael?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
What-
and she's at the Stockbridge Housing Authority.
What are,
StockbridgeHA@gmail.com.
okay, so June Wolf is with who?
Construct is the name of the company.
Construct,
They're an
okay.
affordable housing, you know,
And
they
and
built
the
Pine Woods.
The Pine Woods person is,
Andrea Scholler, that's the head of the
Andrea.
Stockbridge Housing Authority.
okay. So we would do that in conjunction. What's her last name? Solar?
I know, I think it's SCHOLLER.
Okay.
I think.
SCH.
And I can confirm that tomorrow when I'm in the
Yeah,
office.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And then what we do with this is we combine that with somebody from Lennox. And then we move along on the first motion.
And while we're at it, let's talk to the Berkshire Habitat for Humanity. I mean, you know, a volume of information. What the woman who runs that has forgotten about affordable housing is more than I'll ever know. I mean, she's just amazing. I can get you her name if you give me a second.
Any,
can I make a suggestion?
yes,
Can we just start, because these meetings could go on forever, hours and hours. If we could just talk with Lennox first, before we have someone from Construct and all
I
the
would
other
agree with
people in
that.
first. That's
Sure.
what I think our first step should be, and I think that's most important, because if it's not going to work for us, we're calling all these people in for information that's, granted, it's valuable, but I think we need to talk with we need legality, how do we do this legally before we set up all our rules and
Right.
regulations and everything. I think we need to do that first.
I would agree with that.
That's my opinion.
I'm comfortable with that.
Jay, I was just thinking that our discussion tonight so far has been about sort of the practical issues and challenges of developing the housing.
Right.
But our other track really of our mission here is to develop what it takes to set up this actual trust group. So we've sort of got
Correct.
two things going on here, and one of them is really the mechanics of setting up the trust. And I assume developing a warrant that would go to the town meeting. Maybe we can get this done in time for the town meeting to create the trust.
Yes.
So there's another track in addition to the kind of issues that the trust would be dealing with of trying to make the housing happen.
I
Yeah.
agree.
First, you
I'll
want to have
check
a
with,
statement as to what would go into the program before you can develop the trust document.
Yes.
That's why we want to find out about these properties.
And
Yeah.
I'll check with legal on the steps as far as, once we know what we're doing, we should be able to work off of some of the templates from other towns to pretty easily create the trust document itself. So,
Mhm.
Is the idea that we would present to a town meeting in May that, to create the trust? Would that be our goal? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, this has to be approved by town meeting.
all right, so that's our deadline then, really, to make sure whatever the date is when we have to have that into the town meeting hopper.
Yeah.
we'd be looking at probably mid-April.
All right,
You
Oh,
know,
there we
that would be ideal with assuming that we're gonna have a typical third Monday town meeting.
okay. Well, there's a deadline we can nail down to in our schedules.
Stick it on the wall.
The legal framework shouldn't be that hard. Donna's already showed us a draft, Michael and I, a draft of one she did, Donna's the town council, of one she did for another town. I mean, basically it's written in a way that gives us flexibility and that the town can approve a town meeting. It's not rocket science.
Great, that's good to know.
Is there any other business to come before this committee? Michael and I will get together and get this information, and then we'll schedule our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
If we don't get a chance to talk, I want to wish everybody a wonderful Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. And stay well, everybody. Okay?
Thank you. You need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Okay? Thank you very much. 6:41 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks, Jay.
everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
Thank you.